So hi, here we are then, finally. Um, well, 7 p.m. we didn't make. We had a technical issue. To be quite honest, my head is all over the place. So I hope I will perform well tonight. But welcome and thank you for waiting or thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you. And yeah, today we're going to talk about nano zinc and copper. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Misha Kruse. I am from the Netherlands, so I am Dutch for those who don't know me yet. And I'm also speaking from the Netherlands. With us, it's 1 hour later. Yeah, and we've been working really hard to get things ready. So I hope that all will be fine because I'm still thinking in Dutch and yeah. But anyway, I work in this field for over 20 years. I'm an orthomolecular advisor, and the last couple of years I've been specializing myself in nanominerals, what they do, how they work for you and for me, for our health, and also on the technical side. And today we're going to tell you a little bit more from the 7 nanominerals that are on the site right now, because we have a beautiful website, nanominerals.nl, not yet in English, but that is about to come. However, you can find the links to review these webinars on the website. I'll show you the website also later on. Nanominerals, in short, I think most of the viewers we have today know this already, but most important things are they teeny tiny small, so they go via the soft tissue of the mouth straight into the bloodstream. And the good thing about that is that it works really fast and it's very efficient. And because of the oligodynamic effect, which basically means that with less amount you have more effort, or effect or efficacy, yeah, it's very safe and you have a fast working. So they're liquid, they're tasteless, odorless, they don't have a smell, so that's also very easy if you have children, elderly, or if you have problems with swallowing. And basically they don't have any side effects. So it's very easy to take. And today, in particular, we're going to talk about nano zinc and nano zinc and copper, because there are 2 forms, just the pure zinc and the zinc and copper. Why would you choose either one? Basically, normally you would always choose zinc and copper, but there are a couple of incidents that you would choose for just zinc, but we will go over that. First of all, maybe you recognize some of these. Maybe you're pregnant, maybe you have a flu or a cold, maybe you have some skin rashes, irritations, a sore throat, you have a copper spiral, maybe you suffer or you know someone that suffers from autism, ADHD, prostate complaints, depressions. These are all symptoms that usually relate to yeah, a small or a large zinc and copper deficiency. And we will go over the several issues and symptoms. But first of all, we're going to have a look, what is nano zinc? Well, zinc is a mineral, as most of you know, but minerals are divided in different groups. And yeah, one of the divisions is metals and non-metals. Like for example, selenium is a mineral that is a non-metal, but most minerals fall in a group of metals. They can yeah, interfere with other metals and compounds very easily. So for example, you have the salt that you use in your kitchen, the natrium chloride, which is a metal with a non-metal. And therefore it's also easy for metals to form compounds such like magnesium citrate or zinc methionine. So zinc is a mineral or a metal, as you like to call it, that is essential for our health. We need about 8 milligrams a day. With nano, that's a little bit different because the special form you need a little bit less for the same effect. It is present in all body cells, so that gives a clear indication of how important zinc actually is. It increases our resistance in several ways, as you're soon going to find out. It promotes growth, muscle buildup. If you like to go to the gym, you quite like some extra zinc. Buildup and recovery. And it inhibits infections, inflammations, and that goes from a simple sore throat like infection to actually rheumatism and all kinds of infections in between. So you can think of diabetes, Crohn's, but also a skin rash, all kinds of infections and inflammations can be reduced or taken care of by zinc. And also copper plays a role in that. So what is nanocopper? Nanocopper is, well, here I on purpose put a different name because it's a trace element to make it a little bit more difficult, just to go over these terms, as a lot of people have mix-ups with those. A trace element is a mineral that you actually need in lesser amounts than the minerals like magnesium and chloride and zinc. You need a little bit more. Actually, zinc falls like this within the border if it's a mineral or a trace element. But as you could see, we needed from zinc about 8 milligrams a day, and copper only like 100 milligrams. 8 grams a day of zinc, and copper only 100 milligrams a day. So that's much, much less. Therefore, we also don't get a copper deficiency as easily as we can get a zinc deficiency. However, we do need it. And what also can happen, sometimes we have enough copper, but not the right form. As when you look at atoms, the little particles that are, well, that all our molecules are built from, they can occur in different forms, and in that way you can have like monovalent or divalent, and maybe you know this term from iron, divalent, trivalent, and this also counts for copper. And for example, if you have a copper spiral, that can give you a copper buildup, but it's usually a divalent, and therefore you can be deficient in the right form of copper, which is the monovalent, which is the form that you get from plants, because plants take copper from the soil, they transform it in a different way, so it's easy for us to absorb and actually use. So in that way you can have a copper buildup from a copper that your body can't really use, or it needs lots of enzymes and other minerals to transform it. So if you lack those, you basically have a problem. And therefore you can be short in the right form. This counts for lots of minerals. We actually do need copper every day, all of us. As you can see, it's good to strengthen our immune system, very important for that. It's also necessary for the formation of connective tissue, veins, bones. It's needed to storage your iron in the hemoglobin. And it provides pigmentation, which is very important for healthy skin and also proper eye function. So nano zinc and copper together is always in a liquid, tasteless, elemental, so not a compound, which is very important because therefore it looks exactly like this glass of water. And it's tasteless, but the most important function of that is that it goes easily into the bloodstream. You need little amounts and it works fast. Therefore, it is the best absorbable mineral that is on the market today. It doesn't have any side effects like zinc, a common side effect is nausea, especially when it's taken on an empty stomach. But even with foods, lots of people suffer from nausea from zinc. With Nano Zinc, it does not occur. I've never heard any nausea from Nano Zinc. And yeah, zinc and copper are very synergistic. So why are they together in one bottle? Because of the synergistic effect. It's a good balance of copper because the ratio of copper and zinc should be 10 to 1 zinc to copper. And so we need 10 times as much zinc as we do of copper. It is usable if it's usable for a long-term use, because if you would take zinc long-term without copper, you would get a copper deficiency because they work together, and also they make use of the same canal within the bowels, within the guts, to be taken up into the blood system. With the Nano Zinc and copper, actually, that wouldn't be such a problem because it goes via the soft tissue. However, if you get too much zinc, you would get a copper deficiency. The other way around also works because when you use up a lot of zinc and you don't get enough via food or supplement, you could get a copper overload. But actually, it's a zinc shortage and not so much of a copper overload, but they're out of balance. And that you see quite a lot. They work together to fight off bacteria, viruses, fungi, and therefore they increase your resistance. So you are better protected against colds and flu, but also inflammations and infections. They also promote together healthy skin, healthy hair, and pigmented hair. So if you want to decrease getting gray hair and you want to form nice pigmentation when you're in the sun, it's good to take zinc with copper because it's mainly the copper that's responsible for the nice color. And also your eyes need pigment to protect you against the UV and other free radical, but we will go into that shortly. Also strong nails, joints, bones, they are all dependent on zinc and copper. Of course, calcium, magnesium, vitamin K, we all need that. But zinc and copper also plays a big role. And as you see, especially when you follow different kind of webinars, you see that all these minerals and also lots of vitamins work together. We basically need them all, but one we need more than others. Like zinc is one of the minerals that we can easily get a shortage of. And that can result in fatigue, infections, colds, ongoing sore throats or skin irritations, things like that, because zinc has a big role in those things. They're also like both, for example, beneficial for healthy cholesterol levels and proper brain function, especially the cognitive tissue. But zinc is also very important. It doesn't only play a role in a neurotransmission, but also your neuroplasticity, which basically means recovery from damaged brain cells. So if you keep your phone on your ear a lot, which gives lots of radiation and therefore can or will create some oxidative stress and therefore damage to the brain cells. And zinc is one of the few substances that can actually protect us against that and also renew healthy tissue. So very good for your brain. So zinc at a glance. I told you quite a couple of things already, but just to go over it and a little bit of extra going over it, repeating, so I'm looking for the words, will help you to understand and memorize what zinc and copper are for. So do you need zinc? Yeah, you do need zinc. And the body contains about 2 grams of zinc, and that promotes basically, well, healthy eyesight, libido and fertility, Healthy skin, mucous membrane, so that is your eyes, but in the mouth, in the nose, in the bowel, of course, we have a lot of mucous membranes, which also carries most of our defense mechanism. We need it for all healthy tissues. Proper functioning of DNA, which is, of course, really important. High resistance, so again, to fight off the bacteria, the viruses, to keep healthy, not to become sick. Strong muscles. I like to go to the gym, but well, we need strong muscles basically just to carry us around from home to work. But if you like exercising or you have hard labor going on, then we need some extra zinc for strong muscles. Growth and cell renewal, which finds place all day long, every minute, every second of the day. And like I just said, neurotransmissions and neuroplasticity, so for healthy brain. And then we have a glance at what copper does overall. Do you need copper? Yes, you need copper as well, a little bit less. But like pigmentation of skin and hair, that goes via melanin, not to be confused with melatonin, which promotes healthy sleep and is actually anti-cancer as well. But melanin is the pigmentation for the skin. We need it for formation of elastin and collagen, and that is also needed for healthy skin. 70% of the skin consists out of collagen. So you need it for elasticity, tightness, firmness, so against wrinkles. And but it's also very important for our other organs like lungs, blood vessels, because if they're not elastic, they can't work properly to breathe and breathe out. They need to have sort of elasticity. And of course also your blood vessels, especially for the small ones, for your body to be able to get all the nutritional value to every part of the body. Your blood vessels need to be elastic. Also, it's important for iron storage in the hemoglobin. And of course, iron is so important to bind to the oxygen and get the oxygen throughout all of the body that we need to produce energy. Without energy, we're nowhere. We would die off very fast. So iron is, how do I say that? Indirectly very important for our iron and oxygen supply. And copper also directly plays a role in physiological and mental well-being. Also has to do with neurotransmission, buildup of neurons, and the antioxidant defense, the SOD or superoxide dismutase, which is a very important enzyme that protects us against cell damage, which is mainly built up from zinc and copper. So zinc for your eyes, what does it exactly? They protect together against they function as antioxidants, and therefore they protect us against all kinds of eye diseases. In the first, of course, just vision. You can actually see a difference if you take, especially zinc, because we need that more than copper, that you can see like that you need your glasses less than when you don't take a little bit of extra zinc. Me, for example, I still have the same strength for about 20 years now already. So I started with glasses with -1. I'm still on -1. I don't wear them through everyday life, but I do need them when I drive the car and when I go to the cinema. But I do notice a difference when I do not take my zinc on a frequent base. Then I grab for my glasses faster. So then I know, oh yeah, I'm getting short in zinc again. And your body cannot store zinc, or very little. So therefore, if you don't get it from your food or a supplement, within a couple of weeks or sometimes even days, depending on your life habits, You can get a zinc shortage very fast, and so you can notice it in, for example, your eyesight, or that you feel like your skin is a little bit itchy, or has a little bit of a rash or something like that. So it protects against that, but also for more severe eye problems like cataract and macular degeneration, and even glaucoma. And why is that? Well, the eyes, because they're directly in contact with air, so oxygen and pollution from the air, they're very sensitive for damaging by free radicals. Basically, oxidation just means the interconnections between different particles. So every atom, electron, molecule, they interchange electrons, and that process is called oxidation. Usually it goes together with oxygen, but not always, even though the name makes you think it's always with oxygen, but that's actually not the case. But most of the time it is. And when it is with oxygen, you can also get more free radicals. Free radicals are actually also needed. For a long time, we thought they're only doing damage to our body, but that is not the case. They actually help fight off certain damage to our body. But when it's out of balance, so we have too many free radicals and not enough antioxidants, then the free radicals actually damage our cells and our membranes, which in the end will make us age and also increase illnesses and ailments. This also happens in your eye. So just by oxidation, we get free radicals. And in the end, when it goes on and on and on, we can get disorders, because cataract is basically, how do I say that? It makes sure that you can't see properly, because you get a sort of cloudiness, because proteins actually connect to each other, and therefore you get a sort of cloudy sight, and you can in the end get blind from that. And what we need is proper antioxidants to avoid that. And also maybe if you suffer from cataract, to decrease it a little. I won't say you can heal it, but you can make sure the progression goes slower. And definitely we can prevent it. So taking lots of zinc and copper, which play a big role in the SOD, and the SOD will actually protect us against the free radical damage. Macular degeneration is also caused by free radicals, but in a different way, because within the middle of our eyes, we have so-called, I don't know the English word for that. In Dutch we say kegeltjes en staafjes. But so they're substances that we need to have proper eyesight, so we can actually read and drive the car. We can give a webinar. And if those substances are affected by free radicals, they break down. And when we have lots of damage on that, we lose sight, but in a different way. And therefore it's also, well, in Holland, we call it a yellow spot, because you usually get like a spot in the middle of the eye. So you see the things around that still clear, but in the middle, you get a spot which affects your eyesight. And glaucoma is oppression on the eyeball, because the eye is not able to release itself from too much of moist. And in the end, because of depression, it can damage your nerves in the eye. And all of those you can prevent by proper antioxidants. Again, lots of zinc and copper, but also other antioxidants are very important, especially tyrosine, L-tyrosine, or taurine. Sorry, I say it wrong. Taurine is an amino acid which is important for the eye. And zinc not only plays parts in the antioxidant in the SOD, but it also makes sure vitamin A from the liver is released to be able to travel to the eye, where it forms together with copper melanin. And melanin is the pigmentation for the eye that protects us against the UV radiation, and that damages the eye, and also from pollution from the air. So in that way, we get proper eye, we keep our proper eye function. So zinc indirectly promotes eye health because of the vitamin A release. And eyes also have lots of fatty acids, and especially the ones that are more vulnerable for damage, like EPA and DHA, also omega-7, which we need for moist eyes, against dryness. They are all in the eye membranes, and they're very vulnerable against damage, and therefore we need all these antioxidants. You will also find that zinc is in a high amount in our eyes, within the SOD, but also on its own, especially in the vascular membrane, or the choroid, as you call it. But also vitamin C, vitamin B2, as it takes a role in oxidation, which we need, and also lutein, zeaxanthin, bioflavonoids. Those all play an important role for your eyes. So if you want to increase eyesight and go against eye problems, take zinc and copper, but also these other antioxidants. I think most of what's here I already told you, but it's nice written down so you can go over it. Also, if you take the review or you go to the link to watch this webinar back. But yeah, copper also contributes to the formation and suppleness of the fine blood vessels. What I told you before, that we need copper for elastin and collagen, that is so very important for your veins and arteries. And of course, within the eyes, they are so teeny tiny and tight. So in the eye, it's extra important that they are supple. So all the vitamins, because if you want to take all these antioxidants like the zeaxanthin and the bioflavonoids, of course, from your digestion tract into the blood system, they have to finally end up in your eye, and therefore you need this supple blood vessels, and therefore you need copper. Yeah, the EPA, DHA I already told you, and the UV. So yeah, I think I covered the whole eye section by now. By the way, if you have any questions, please ask them. With my computer layout there, the questions are so teeny tiny, I cannot see them. I definitely need my glasses. So my colleague will come in if any one of you has questions for me. But maybe most of you see this webinar later on, as we started about 45 minutes later. Zinc directly sprayed or trickled into the eye. So when you drop it in the eye, it gives immediate relief. I do not have an explanation for that yet, because I know zinc indirectly and directly provides a nice moist eye due to the freeing of the vitamin A as an antioxidant, working together with copper, make sure that your fatty acids stay nice and healthy. But I don't know why it gives relief right away, but it does. Lots and lots of people have told me that when they suffer from dry eyes, they spray the zinc in it right away, and like immediately they feel a relief. So if you suffer from dry eyes, or you know anyone, you can make yourself or the other person happy with some zinc spraying, or you can drop it or trickle it. So we're going to have a look at zinc and copper for the immune system. It strengthens our immune system in different ways. It helps the immune system in its battle against infections, inflammations, and autoimmune disorders. Zinc and copper ions, those are the ones that have a direct antiviral and antibacterial property. And this is why nano zinc and copper works so fast. And zinc inhibits both the infections of virus cells as well as the replication, because a virus also wants to replicate. It needs to replicate to grow and survive, and in the end make you sick and sicker. So we don't want to just kill it. It's also easy when we stop replication. So if the body's not able to kill it, but it stops the replication, we get to the point where we want to be as well. And zinc provides in both those roles. Copper has, especially like outside of the body, copper has a huge antiviral and antimicrobial effect. For example, the MRSA bacteria that we all know to be very malignant, and we know it from the hospitals. MRSA can actually survive very well on stainless steel door handles, as we have nowadays mostly. It can just survive like six months. So everybody that comes across, uses the doorknob, gets infected by this MRSA, and when your body is not strong enough to fight it off, you can get very, very sick. Whereas a copper doorknob, because it releases copper ions, it kills the MRSA within a few hours, 2 to 4 hours. That's amazing. So if we just go back to the old-fashioned way where we used copper in our doorknobs, but also in cutlery, in kitchen equipment, pans and pots, or silver, copper and silver cutlery, pans and pots are used mostly to protect us against these bacteria and viruses. Thank you. I just got a question. Hi, could you explain the mechanism of cholesterol? Yeah, I will go in that in a while. Because we were just busy on the immune system, but I will explain cholesterol later on. Thank you for your question, Jose. Yeah, but within the body, zinc and copper also prevent us from getting sick by this mechanism. Especially zinc is very powerful in decreasing viruses and bacteria. Of course, before I get to question, silver also does that. Silver is stronger in killing viruses, bacteria, yeast, and fungi. So basically, you put in a second immune system in your body, where zinc more strengthens our own immune system. So our T cells, B cells, natural killer cells can do its work. So both would be very handy with colds and flus. Zinc actually shortens flu and colds. It has shown in dozens of studies. I took one here, for example, that preventive zinc use in children reduces the risk of colds with 36%, which is quite a lot. And what I especially liked was that zinc supplementation pushes back sick leave and use of antibiotics. So you have less problems with children not going to school due to having a cold or flu. And also antibiotics are pushed back, which is a good thing, because antibiotics we need sometimes in very severe cases. But overall, they give a lot of side effects. They undermine our immune system. Therefore, we get sick faster again. They decrease our zinc levels. So overall, when we can avoid it, please avoid. And so zinc can help you with that. Especially liquid zinc, because they release the ions immediately, they work faster. And especially when you apply like a throat infection, for example, zinc spray or liquid that you keep in the mouth works much faster than when you take a capsule or a tablet. Even a lozenge because it takes much more time to release the ions. But what is important when you want to shorten your flu or your cold, you have to take the zinc in a 4 times daily dosage. So when you normally would take half or a whole cup of zinc, nano zinc a day, you take 4 cups of zinc a day. That also counts for when you would use a compound, but of course the liquid works much faster. And there's also other benefits from nano zinc, because zinc compounds can also feed fungi and yeast within your bowels, whereas nano zinc does not do that. But we go over that later on. So how do nano zinc and copper increase your resistance? Well, first of all, because of the antioxidant defense system. The whole day our body is attacked by free radicals, because the whole day our body needs to produce energy. Without energy, our system cannot function properly. So also the immune system is attacked by a lack of energy. But by producing energy, we also get free radicals. So we need the zinc and the copper for the SOD. The SOD is in every cell of the body, every membrane of the body cells, because especially the membrane contains a lot of fatty acids to keep its suppleness. So vitamins, minerals can go in and out of the cell. So therefore, it needs a lot of SOD to protect those fatty acids against free radical damage. So here we need the zinc and the copper, and this indirectly promotes healthy resistance. Also, they play a big role in the actually energy production. First of all, zinc and copper we need to digest fatty acids, fats, proteins, carbohydrates. But then from those fats and carbohydrates and proteins, when they are digested, they go into the mitochondria, the little fabrics in our body that produce energy. Then in the end, it's a whole process, but it contains out of 4 steps, basically 4 big proteins in which all transformations find place. And in the last part, we need zinc and copper and iron as ions to actually produce the ATP, and the ATP is the battery, the energy of our body. And like when we don't have enough energy, the body doesn't provide good, proper function of all things that need to help. So then if we do not have enough energy, the body will make a choice. For example, we need to breathe, we need to digest food to survive. So if we do not have enough energy, that might mean it's not going enough energy to provide healthy sperm or ova, or to provide good blood circulation in the skin, because that's less important than keep your heart pumping and get your muscles going. So in that way, a lack of energy will cause certain ailments and a higher risk of aging, cell damage, and sickness in the end. And copper is also needed for the fixation of iron in the hemoglobin. So in that way, it also contributes to the energy level by oxygen supply. So there's all kinds of ways that zinc and copper use to get us strong with a healthy resistance, a healthy immune system, and fight off viruses, bacteria, and other pathogens. But there's more, because zinc also is needed for certain soldiers in our body, namely the interferons. Interferons are certain proteins produced by white blood cells that interfere with viral replication. So in this way, zinc interferes with viral replications. There are about 20 different types of interferons in the human body, and they are very important and specific weapons to combat acute and chronic infections, of bacteria and viruses. And for example, a study showed that zinc increased the effect of interferon alpha with a factor 10. So that's huge. And interferon alpha, for example, it has a lot of functions within the body, but it plays an important role to fight off cancer. And that is also, well, an indirect way how zinc helps to fight off cancer cells. Then zinc, as you can see, is also, and copper, by the way, are important for the function of T cells and B cells. T cells because they're produced in the thymus, B cells because they're produced in the bone marrow. And to produce and function, they need zinc. So basically, zinc is needed for the function and production of all proteins in the body, and also for the white blood cells. And therefore, zinc is so important for our whole immune system. And for example, these T cells, B cells, these are like snipers on their own. They can fight very specific pathogen, but also they produce the interleukins that in their way protect us. They play a big role in regulating fever, infections, inflammations, and both from bacterial or viral sources as also hormonal sources. Because if our body gets disrupted, we get like disrupted DNA, we have too many heavy metals or other pollutions, and the body does not live up to keep that in balance, the body can start to attack our own body. And especially with a lack of zinc, it's difficult for the body to keep the DNA healthy and therefore give the right information to all the cells. So in that way, zinc plays a big role from the basis to protect us against all those diseases. And we don't know for sure how copper works in this mechanism, but we did see, or studies have shown, that a copper deficiency also contributes to a decrease of properly function interleukins. I hope I pronounced that well, but specific proteins that protect us against all inflammation, all kinds of inflammations and infections. And again, you have to think about like Crohn's disease, colitis ulcerosa, diabetes, heart and vein disease, all these kinds of things. This is, by the way, one of the mechanisms that zinc also works on a good cholesterol level. Because if your arteries and veins do not proper function, they lose their elasticity, we have too many free radicals, they damage heart and veins. Therefore, the body is going to use cholesterol to stick to the part where the vein and the artery is damaged. It's like a sort of glue. So cholesterol is a rescue remedy when heart and veins are damaged. So indirectly, zinc helps with your cholesterol levels because it makes sure the body needs less of the cholesterol to repair damage. But also because zinc plays a role in the immune system, in the transformation of fatty acids. For example, when you eat linseed oil and you want to get from the fatty acids ALA to go to EPA and DHA, which actually the brain uses. You need zinc for the transformation of those fatty acids, and that also counts for cholesterol. Zinc plays a role in that, and because it plays a role in the whole hormonal system, it works on the thyroid. It has different kinds of way where it promotes healthy cholesterol levels. And anyway, it is seen that people will have higher levels of the wrong cholesterol, so to say. They always have zinc deficiency. So I hope I have answered your question by now in a proper way. Then we have a little look at zinc on DNA, because zinc is one of the most important minerals to keep DNA in a healthy condition. I see the translation didn't went well there. Sorry, because of the technical disruption. I ran out of time to put, well, in Holland we say, put the point on the I to make everything in a perfect condition. But however, how does it work? Nano Zinc in DNA. So all day long cells in our body, and we have trillions of those, are built up and broken down to, in the end, make sure that our body functions well. We need our cells constantly divide, they grow. After they did it about 56 times, they die off, because if it goes on, then the cell can start to dysfunction, become a cancerous cell, or in another way damages our body. So after a certain while, the cell needs to die off. The body has a mechanism for that called apoptose. So it makes sure that the body cannot get too old cells that will damage us. For all of these things, we need zinc, because we need zinc to form proteins, the build-up blocks of our body. That means cells. We need the zinc to divide the cells, and we need the zinc to get cell differentiation, which actually means that the cell gets the proper function from the DNA. So to get the instructions from the DNA, the information is copied within the cell nucleus to a thing that's called RNA, and that goes to another cell part, which is called ribosomes. And the ribosomes make sure that the actually formation is made, and the information goes to the other cells. That all relies on zinc. So that whole copy and transport of information from the DNA is called transcription. Maybe some of you heard of the transcription of the zinc fingers, a whole chemical process. But what we need to remember is that both DNA itself, which is also a building block, and the transcription relies on our zinc levels. Of course, such a process is much more important than a rash on your skin. So if you lack zinc, you will find things like poor eyesight, skin rash, maybe bowel problems, diarrhea, because if you have a lack of zinc, you can often get lots of diarrhea. Because of course the DNA replication is more important, so you will suffer elsewhere from a zinc loss. Yeah, and with all these functions, our whole defense mechanism lean on our zinc status. Yeah, and if we do not have enough zinc, we can get cell disruptions, because if DNA cannot function properly, we might get disruptions. And in the best case, that means your cell dies off. But in the worst case, it means that we actually get cancerous tumors, because from mutations, you can get cancerous tumors. And we need more zinc to fight those off. By the way, for the ones that saw my webinar on platinum, a little repetition, or for the ones that didn't see it, platinum is a metal or mineral, how you want to call it, that can actually mimic SOD. So if you suffer from a zinc and copper shortage, or your body needs much more SOD production than it can produce, platinum can come to the rescue, because it can mimic SOD and therefore protect your cells and cell membranes against free radical damage. And also, platinum plays an important role in the fight against cancer, where it functions as immunotherapy. So it strengthens our own body. So if you want to know more about that, I would advise you to go to the www.nanominerals.nl. It is still all written in Dutch, but you can find the link to review that webinar, because that's also very interesting. Well, I find it very interesting. Here a little bit more about cancer. So when the DNA gets an error in the transcription, for example, because of a zinc deficiency, cancer cells can arise. And a low zinc status actually is associated with big increased risks of prostate cancer, lung cancer, ovarian cancer, gallbladder cancer, and probably a lack of zinc will also increase the risk of all other forms of cancer. Both copper and zinc ions can stimulate certain proteins called PI3Ks. I never heard of that before I went in all this matter, but it's a group of proteins that play a protective role by promoting apoptosis. So it plays a role in the apoptosis when the body notices a cell doesn't function well. The PI3Ks make sure that cell is being killed. But also it can play, so it can go both ways, because of course for the healthy cells we don't want anti-apoptosis, and that is all regulated by the immune system, and those proteins play a big role in that, and copper and zinc ions are needed for these proteins to function. And copper and zinc also both help stabilize certain proteins, making them less susceptible to oxidation. And this goes in one way via the SOD. So amongst others, it goes via SOD. Of course, zinc, well, again, is essential for building proteins. That includes all the proteins and white blood cells that we need to keep our resistance high, like TNF-alpha, that can actually kill pathogens and also encourage apoptosis, so the cell death of diseased cells. And both copper and zinc ions are involved, well, again, in energy production, which indirectly, but in the end, keeps our immunity high and therefore contributing to cancer prevention. So this is also a way of immunotherapy against cancer. And well, there is so much to tell about zinc and copper, but so I can't cover it all, but we're gonna have a look at some muscles, bones, hair, and skins, and then I'm gonna end with some information on their role in our gut flora, and I'm gonna show you where you can actually find zinc in foods. But here we look at the muscles and the bones. So zinc, well, I can't repeat it enough, but is essential for growth and repair of cells, tissue, muscles, and bones. So also think of children growing up, teenagers getting adults and going through all this transformation with hormonal processes. Pregnant women, they have a lot of cell growth and division going on for the not yet born baby. So they need lots of extra zinc, also iron and other minerals. When you do intensive sports, I mean, if you do intensive sports, your muscles need to get stronger. To do that, you need zinc. Funnily enough, zinc is absorbed better when you eat proteins. So, well, that makes sense, of course. So when you get zinc from your food, try to do it with proteins, but you will also find out soon that most zinc is in protein-rich foods. But if you have any of these things going on, so you need to recover from a wound or a stressful situation, stress does it increases our zinc needs because stress damages our bodies, our cells. It's very demanding stress for the body. So if you have a lot of stress, your needs for zinc will go up, just like magnesium. Without magnesium, your body cannot relax. But because it damages the cell stress, you also need more zinc to recover from it by cell growth and division. Copper is involved in the release of energy, well, both within the iron formation and also within the actually processing ATP. And again, it's needed for the flexibility of the collagen, skin, bones, joints, cartilage. So we need them both for healthy tissue in that way. Also, zinc is of course needed to form proteins, to have the information from the DNA to the actually cells in the bones. So therefore, again, indirectly, it plays a big role in formation of all tissues. So also muscles, bones, cartilage, so the joints. And therefore, they also, because they strengthen the immune system, so also diseases of bones and cartilage and muscles are helped by zinc and copper, like rheumatism, but also fibromyalgia, sorry. I have to sometimes think about the words, but all kinds of diseases of the muscles and the joints can be prevented or can be decreased by use of copper and zinc. And then skin, nice copper colored hair, it looks lovely. In this way, of course, again, it's zinc and copper stimulates the production and renewal of skin, hair, collagen, elastin, connective tissue. Also hair is dependent on very teeny tiny veins, arteries to get their nutritional value. So we eat all the right things, but if the veins do not work properly, if they're too tight, if they're not flexible enough, it's very difficult to get all the nutritional value to the actually hair. Copper ensures more smooth, firm, and elastic skin because of that. And they both contribute to youthful, resilient skin, and it also contributes to shiny and pigmented and strong hair. Therefore, also copper and zinc help to prevent pigmentation spots, which we usually see when we get older. Of course, skin irritations, rashes, vitiligo. That definitely, if you want to prevent that or decrease the progression of that, you should use some copper. And also skin melanomas have seen to be healthier. How do I say that? You can fight off skin melanomas with zinc and copper. It can definitely help you fight, make the body stronger to fight the battle against those. So not only cancerous tumors within the body, but especially skin melanomas needs copper to be battled. But also think, of course, of like if you do a tattoo, for example, most of the people know skin emollient or zinc emollient is used for that. Of course, if you use zinc and copper spray directly on the skin, it releases ions directly, so you have faster recovery. If you put a nice emollient over that, you have double and proper skin healing. But also diaper rash, if you have a wound, a scratch, if you have a sore throat, all those things can be helped with zinc and copper. So here you go, like a spray, but also when you have a dropper bottle, you can put it directly on the skin. And even in your hair, you can spray it in your hair. It will help lift up dull hair. And of course, it goes against gray hair. Yeah, and then because I've been talking for a while now, so a little bit of humor can help to prevent you of falling asleep right now. Zinc and copper is also used against low libido and low fertility. So if you want to build those up, here again, sperm and ova, of course, are zinc dependent because it's proteins that need to be built up. They're also very sensitive cells, so they're very sensitive for free radical oxidation. So in that way, zinc and copper also helps. Of course, again with the SOD, men who are sexually active are more likely to get a zinc deficiency because actually ejaculation makes sure that you lose a lot of zinc. It's several grams that you lose by that. So if you're on top of that, stressed, or you are an intensive sports athlete, then it's very easy to become zinc deficient. Yeah, so in those cases, if you want to have better fertility, yeah, increase your success in getting a baby, or you want a higher libido, take some extra zinc. Copper will also add in that, but especially zinc is needed for that. And yeah, then we go from the libido to the bowel, also to the belly, because a nice libido and fertility can end up in getting pregnant. So zinc also for the belly, but especially when we look into the gut, we need zinc because zinc is so important for the mucus layer within our bowels. Within the mucus layer, 80% of our defense mechanism is stored. Most of the interleukins, macrophages, all kinds of white blood cells and proteins that are needed for a healthy immune system are in our mucus layer within the gut. So therefore, a healthy gut is so very important. And we need zinc to keep that healthy. And also, all the cells are bind together with a certain protein called zonula. Do I say that right? Yeah. And they're also known as tight junctions. And we need zinc to keep those healthy. When we have a huge disbalance because of an overload of fungi, candida, yeast, bad bacteria, they all produce kinds of acids and other things that damage the mucus layer. And then these tight junctions get disrupted, they break, and then basically the bowel is open. So everything from the bowel can get into the blood system with all undigested foods and also all kinds of pathogens that they will cause kinds of ailments you can get, allergies from that, skin rashes, but also joint problems, headaches, rheumatism, all kinds of stuff, because all that things do not belong in the blood system. And when your mucus layer is damaged and it's basically open, everything gets in, you can get very sick. Also, yeast, fungi, and parasites they need zinc and iron to survive and duplicate themselves. So in this case, it's very important that you, especially for iron, but also for zinc, you do not take a compound, because of course that goes via the digestive tract, and the first ones to be able to pick up on the zinc and the iron from a compound are the fungi, or basically the little animals in our gut that we do not wish for them to be there. So if you take zinc and iron in a nano form, It will go from the soft tissue in your mouth into the blood system, and it goes via the other way into the immune system in your mucus, and it can repair the damaged mucus layer. You also need fatty acids, L-glutamine, and vitamin D, for example. But zinc plays an important role in that. And of course, both zinc and copper fight off free radical damage and increase your own healthy defense mechanism. You need zinc and copper to build up your own healthy immune system. Yeah, so what can zinc and copper give me? Well, they can give me a healthy prostate, because an unhealthy prostate usually comes from an unhealthy defense mechanism, from inflammations, from cell growth that doesn't belong there. So zinc and copper protects against those. Strong connective tissue, strong and shiny hair, healthy eyes, healthy eyesight, beautiful nails, powerful resistance. This all goes because of the antioxidant functions, the SOD, the release of vitamin A into your eyes, where it forms melanin that protects, because of the contribution to healthy vessels, veins, arteries, because of the production and buildup of proteins and healthy blood cells. All of these contribute to all these things. So healthy growth, muscle growth, clear skin, fast cure for sore throat, increase of libido and fertility, healthy gut. All these things are given to you, amongst others, but in a big role by zinc and copper. Yeah, there is more to cover. Zinc, for example, plays a huge role in ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and by the way, that is something not to forget. What we see often within these kind of disorders, usually it's a zinc shortage, but it can have a copper overload. So in that case, you start with just zinc, and after a month or two, you go over to the zinc with copper. If you want to make sure, anyhow, if you're not sure if you might have a slight copper overload and a shortage of zinc, you can always start with just zinc and then later on go over into zinc with copper. At the long term, you definitely need them both. It can be because it's so easy for us to gain a zinc shortage and less easy to gain a copper shortage, that you can say, well, we'll start with just zinc and later on I go over to both of them, unless you're sure or you have a hair analysis or something like that. You can go to them both, or you have a skin melanoma, or you have cartilage problems, and you can start with them both. But if you're not sure, if you're doubting, just start with the zinc. After two months, you go over to them both. Sources of zinc, by far the highest levels of zinc you get in oysters. I do not like them, but if you do, enjoy. They have 84 grams of zinc with 100 grams of oyster. So that's huge. You can really stack up zinc. Unless maybe you have lots of candida, overgrowth, parasites, maybe you do not want to do it, because then they like the oysters then as well. Then please go for a Nano Zinc. But if you're overall healthy and you want to just gain some more zinc, oysters is very good. Otherwise, you will see protein-rich foods, so like crab, fish, cheese, in lesser amounts, milk, poultry and eggs, but they have some zinc. Of course, you can also find zinc in grains, beans, nuts. However, the vegetarian and the vegan sources of zinc also contain phytonutrients, which make sure they connect to zinc, and therefore you lose most of it in your stool. You can all avoid this by just taking Nano Zinc. It goes from the mucus layer directly in the blood system, so no problem whatsoever. But if you want to have a look at food, bear this in mind. For most vegetarians and vegans, it's very difficult to get enough zinc. So usually you would rely on a zinc supplement, especially in this stressful nowadays lifestyle. The sources of copper: cashew nuts, for example, raw kale, sesame seeds, avocados, apples. The same counts here as for zinc. It binds to these things and you lose a lot in your stool. But you will find, what is logical, of course, that copper is found most in seafoods, just like oysters and shrimps, because it goes together with zinc. So, of course, the nature provides us that what we need. So they go together in food sources. Yeah, I think we covered most of it. I just wanted to say a couple of things about other functions. Oh, I actually did that, but that's a very important thing. So again, zinc helps with neuroplasticity. So it basically recovers damaged brain cells from, like, for example, your phone. But also zinc plays an important role not only in eyes, but also in your other senses, like taste, smell, and also how you touch, basically. So it helps for that, increases that. So if you have enough zinc, you will have better taste, smell, and feeling in your skin. And yeah, the last I wanted to say again is it's very easy to obtain a mild zinc deficiency. Because if you do a lot of exercise, if you have wounds, if you recover, if you came from a hospital, if you have childbirth, well, all these kind of things, if you have a lot of stress, if you're lots behind the computer, you can easily obtain a zinc deficiency, and it will result in more overall weakness, muscle weakness, skin rashes, fatigue, and much more vulnerability against colds and flus, infections, rheumatism, all these things. So if you take more zinc, you will gain an overall better health. You will strengthen your immune system so you can fight the battle against all these invaders that we don't like. I hope you liked this webinar. It gave you some new information. It gave you some good tools to work with copper and zinc. If you have any questions, please, if you receive the link to review this webinar, you can also mail us and put your questions out there, and we'll get back to you and answer all of the questions that you have. It was fun for me to do this again, even after the technical issues, and it took a little bit longer to start up. Yeah, I hope to see you again. It will take a little while because we have summer holidays going on, and somewhere in September, October, we start with the webinars on other matters. We also want to go into themes like leaky gut or depressions and joint problems, ADHD. So we have lots and lots of fun things to cover. So I hope to see you there, and please, check your mail if webinars are coming up. Thank you. Have a lovely rest of the evening, and I hope to see you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.